Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to do some router work on this dancing couple. These are Sky mods, that kind of music. Doing this for a friend of mine. The original template only had the two dancing, the couple dancing there, should I say. So I've incorporated a little record player, and we've thrown on a couple of notes just to sort it out. And it's going to be on plywood today. I'd rather done these on pine, but I just don't seem to have any kicking about. So my free wood is slowly dwindling down to nothing. So it's going to be 12mm plywood today, and I've routed on plywood before, and I've certainly got no issues with it. It comes out fine. The idea is to basically route out all the black sections, going around the body there, around the face, the notes, the full record player. We'll leave a bit of a grill there, maybe just about see it. And then we're going to inlay that with black resin. We'll paint the white sections white. They will be left as wood, and we'll just paint the white. So whatever's white will end up white, whatever's black will end up with black resin. Now once we've done all that, we'll route out all the back piece all together as if we hadn't had enough to do, just leaving a nice little barrier all the way around the full project. And then we'll incorporate some resin in the back of there. I believe the chap wants red, so we'll put red resin around there. Nice bit of statement on the frame. Now the idea with this is we've stuck it down the template, bit of painter's tape, and we put our carbon paper underneath. This is the way I prefer to do it. Some folk like to just basically stick that to the wood and they'll route over the paper. I did try it once, if not twice, and it just didn't work for me, just too messy. So I use carbon paper, go around with a pen. It's all part of the project. That way, if somebody else wants it making again, you've still got your template there to do. Maybe next time you could cut it out on a scroll saw. And there it is. It's all there ready to do. And that's our little template for today. As you can see, what I like to do, and I certainly recommend it, the areas you're going to route out, get yourself a pencil or marker pen, put some kind of marks on there. You'll go away, come back, and you'll start routing out the wrong section. Well, that is the end of your project. So shading the areas that you want to remove, that way when you come back again you won't get too confused. So you can see our frame. We've made a frame there. I've just got a piece of wood, if I can find it again, a little scrap bucket, and that was my frame there. Literally put it on, draw your line all the way around. Obviously you could stick a piece of wood on there and do a frame like that, but for me, because we are removing the back section, be 2 or 3 mil, that will be enough to give us a bit of framework around the project itself. Now as always for me, little CNC bits, 15° today, and that's literally just the angle of that cut on the end there. You can see that one. There we go. So nice and pointed. We don't have too much of an angle on it. They come in 20s, 30s, I believe there's some 60s out there. Just eBay specials for me, or Amazon. Now they do have a small shaft, a 3.175mm, or 1/8 I believe. So you do require what they call an adapter collet, a 6.35mm or 1/4 inch, and that's basically just a tube, as simple as that. And you will slot your CNC bit into there. That's now got a 1/4 inch shaft or 6.35mm, and that's ideal for your 1/4 inch router. If you've got the 1/2 inch one, you're obviously going to need a bigger adapter. And when we do our routing, remember you route up to the lines. So this is that inset, so we're moving the inner, so we want to go up to that line. Very rarely route out on the line, because you've got a small section, obviously something as small as this. If you route out on that line there, you're going to take that way. Oh, excuse me, we are actually removing that section. Let's find a smaller one. This section here, this bit of white there, just to mark off the top of the record player. When we route out, we want to be up to that line and up to that line. Do it on the line on both sides, and that will just pop away and disappear altogether. So we're going to be a bit careful with plywood. On a previous project, I didn't do a video, but I've done one of these chaps before. As I came around the fingers, one of his little thumbs popped off. So, but hopefully on this one, everything should be hunky-dory. So we'll do all our lines with the CNC bit. Once we've done that, to a depth of 3mm, now I made a little gauge, like so. It's literally the thickness of your CNC bit is the depth I work on, and that's plenty for paint or resin. But once we've done all the lines, we'll pop on a end miller bit, especially for these inner sections. Get a nice size. I've got these with these coloured codes on for some reason. I think they come without them now, but it's the same adapter. We'll pop that in. We'll set it to the same depth. You'll notice as I go along, I will remove a section, and we'll basically use that to remove all the penciled out areas. So once we've removed everything we want, this project will be on its way, and the next stage will be to draw a line. We could have done that first. I want to leave that to the end, so we're going to focus on these 3 sections first, and then remember we're going to draw that frame. I'll talk about the frame nearer the time as regards to making a straight guard, or what adapters go with your router to give you a nice straight edge. But for now, we'll simply pop in the CNC bit. That just slots into there, 15 degree, nice and sharp, hopefully. There we go, and we'll start routing out all the lines on this one, and we'll see how we get on. Okay, let's start routing this one out. Right, so we've made it all the way around with that CNC bit for now. We will need that again later when we come to cut out the frame. And remember, we're going to have to go all around the old piece again to make a little barrier there, to stop the resin mixing in with each other. You'll see that as we go along. Normally I would have done the frame now, but we're just going to leave that and focus on the 3 separate items here for now. So next stage is to remove those items, the shaded out areas, basically clear top, the leg section, the ear, and the full suit on the guy there towards the left. So we just simply remove the CNC bit. I'm going to pop in one of these end milling bits. I've used these on 9% of my projects. They're ideal. They clear out the bottom of the piece, as well as you can nibble away at the sides if you wanted to get a bit nearer towards that pencil line. I'm just going to start off with a really small one, the smallest one I can get, to be honest. There is one smaller than this, but it basically breaks as soon as you use it. So we'll go with this smaller one, only because once we pop it in the same adapter collet, they've got the same size shaft on them, shank. We need to just widen these little cuts here, just gently on either side around the hands, because when we couldn't put the resin in, this will all be black resin, and we've also got to try and get some resin into these little gaps here. So we just need to make them just slightly bigger, just so they pour a bit out. So we'll start with this, go around the more delicate areas, as you can see there. And if it's coming out really nice, which I know it will do, hopefully, some plywoods do vary, we can probably pop on a bigger one to help us just speed things up a bit. But I'm certainly in no rush, we'll take our time. So we'll pop that in the router. You'll notice there, I like to remove a couple of sections. There's our little depth gauge, as we call it. So we'll put the router on there, set it to the same depth as that, and basically start removing all the shaded out areas. Let's do that next. Right, so we've made it all the way around with the end mill bit. We've had no problems. Remember, we started with the small one, just to get inside those lines there, just to make those slightly wider. We've got to get resin inside those at the end of the project. That's going to be the most awkward bit. And then towards the end on the bigger section there, we actually popped in a slightly larger one, as you can see from there, and that took that off, no problem whatsoever. Now the next stage now for us, we've got to remove all this background. Now you could leave that like that, basically put your black resin in there, paint your whites onto these sections, and this little project will be heading towards the finishing line once you put a frame on and a bit of stain and stuff. But to make it a bit harder for ourselves, like we do, we're going to route out all this back section, forming a little dam all the way around. So I'll literally just go around with a pencil and just draw a line like so. Don't be too fantastic, just a rough idea to where we want to be. Same round here, same round all these notes as well. And then we can remove all this section, just leaving that nice little dam around the full project. Obviously we've got to route out the frame as well. Now for straight lines, personally myself, I'll just do this freehand, and it's not being clever or showing off. I'm not overly concerned how straight the framework needs to be. For me, when you're doing end ones, you can get yourself a piece of scrap wood of the same thickness. That will just allow your router, excuse me, we're just tangled up here. There we go. Just allow your router a better surface to run on like so. Or for me, this little Black & Decker router that come off Noah's Ark comes with what they call a micro adjuster. Now I've used this once and it just didn't work out for me. But if I remember rightly, it slots into there somehow, ends up sitting on there, and you adjust that to the end of your frame and you can run that like so, giving you a nice straight line, and you adjust it with these little things on the end. I've only used it the once, it didn't work for me. And obviously the other option, nice straight edge of wood. Place your router in the corner where you want it, put your piece of wood on, put a clamp at that end, bring your router over, adjust it to where you want it, put a clamp at that end, and that will just give you a nice guide to run your router. And obviously do the same all the way around like so, and that'll give you a nice enough straight line. But for me, I will just do it freehand. So off camera I shall draw around this, pop in our little CNC bit, do the framework round this, and then we'll pop that nice big one back in again and remove all this background. So we have a little way to go yet, but let's start routing out the rest. Right, we've gone all the way around with that CNC bit. We've made our frame. Remember, we're going to go over with some sandpaper and an engraving bit on the end of a Dremel. Just gives us a general tidy up. We don't have to focus too much on the back there, remember. We're going to cover it all with resin. But you might just be able to see we've actually got a nice framework around the old piece. It'll look totally different again once we remove the back section. So all this penciled out area will now be removed, and that will just get, like I said before, just make a nice barrier plus make us a frame at the same time. So we're going to remove the CNC bit, 15 degree that one. You'll get a lot more projects out of that. I'm just going to pop on a smaller end milling bit if I can get hold of it. Nice new one there. I don't want to go in too big. As we start going around with these more areas around here, we might hit that and it could just chip it out. So I'd rather play safe and just use a more smaller piece just to get us going around these tighter areas. Okay, let's pop that in, set it to the same depth as these ones here, and we'll start removing all this back section. Nice and steady on this one. So you can see from that, we've made it all the way round with one of those little end milling bits. They're ideal because they'll route out the side section, plus give you quite a smooth bottom section as well. And you can see from that, we've removed all the background completely. Nice little slow project. Once you get into the zone, surprising how quickly it will come off. So now I just want to give it a little general tidying up. One, just get rid of those pencil lines there. So a good old sandpaper. Normally I would come on with a mouse sander, but some of these little sections might be a bit fragile and I don't want the sander to actually make them pop off. So good bit of sandpaper just to remove the pencil lines, and we're going to basically round off those routed out areas, so just slightly. But before that, it's going to go inside with a flexi cable, eBay or Amazon, on the end of a Dremel with a nice flat engraving bit. I just get these cheap things off eBay. They come with all different sizes on, and they're ideal for cleaning out with. And I get one with a nice little flat bottom there. That's just enough to go in and give us a nice general tidy up. We can get inside these and clean it all out, and get in these smaller areas just to make sure it's nice and clean. And like I say, a bit of sandpaper, just go over again, just get rid of those little pencil lines we can see there. So I'll give it a quick tidy up, and then when we come back, we'll be looking into the staining side, the painting, and then we're going to fill it all in with resin. But before that, let's just give it a nice little tidy up. Okay, that's enough tidying up for me. Remember, we went around with a Dremel with an engraving bit and a good bit of sandpaper, and we've removed all those pencil lines, as you can see from there. Now I must say, this piece of plywood has been one of the worst I've purchased. There's plenty of nastiness going on, we'll call it, up here. So just be careful of that. I tend to only use plywood when it's going to be resin inlaid, because that resin will cover all that up, and this will look hopefully somewhere near what we want at the end of the project. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast regarding to your plywoods. I've done some that I've routed out and it's been like this through the old piece, absolutely perfect. It might have been that we've just gone down a slight fraction more. Remember, your plywood on layers, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's about 7 or 8 in there. So maybe if we came up a fraction, we might got better section. But you can see from there, it's quite nasty, and that's just the way it is. So remember, yeah, I'm going to need a lot of paint on there to sort that out, or resin only with your plywood. And also, if you're using paint, you can't do a lot of sanding, because you'll sand off the top veneer and the rest of it. That's not going to affect us. Reason being, we're going to use white Painter's Touch paints. Great little paints these. I'll water down the first one, just a little tad of little water, and we're going to paint all these raised sections here. At one time I was going to put the pink in of skin and stuff, but two-tone sky music, also black and white basically, so the colours are going to be the same. So everything that we've left on here will be white. Once that's all nicely dry, we're going to come in with a light teak stain. You knew it was coming. That's nearly done now, so we might not see that much often again. And we're going to do the outer framework with the light teak, let that nicely dry. Well, the actual main frame itself, We're going to use a dark teak on that one, and that comes up really nice when you get a bit of varnish on. So dark teak for the frame, light teak for our barriers, and painter's touch paint for everything else that's left behind. And then after, once that's all nicely dried, we'll spray a bit of varnish on there. One, just to shine it up, and two, just to seal it a little bit better, and that will help with the resin. And when we come to put our resin in, we will not be going to the top of this project. Remember, I still like to be able to feel that it's been routed out. So when we do paint on the white paints, we need a little bit down these side walls, like so. Just get that in a little bit down these side walls. So there might be a bit of masking off, bit of taping, just so I don't get it on that outer section. That's why we do the paint first. Should we get any on this little barrier bit, we can just sand that off and then come and do our stain afterwards. So we put the white paint on first, 2 stains, varnish, and then we'll be resin time. Right, let's go back indoors and we'll start painting this one. Right, there's all our painting for what it was and staining done. So remember, just a little bit of white there. I ended up going over this 3 times, just give it a nice soaking in, and then we just build up with the white gradually. And we had a dark teak just for the framework itself. It looks quite dark when you first put it on, and a light teak there for the actual framework of the couple dancing there. But once it's dry, like I say, it's not as dark as, and I literally just, we popped a bit on the back at the same time, so you can see from that. Now the next stage for me is literally just going to spray some varnish on this. One, because the varnish will give it a nice shine, and for me, I think it just finishes a project. Plus, hopefully that bit of varnish will just seal the wood that we can see and just help with those little bubbles. Now you might think, what was the point of staining all the background here? The reason why I do that now, on a previous project, more with the dark stain, I'd literally just gone around the framework, and whatever overflow was, I just left it. And when I put the resin on top, if it's not mixed deep enough with your colours, you can actually see the stain coming through the resin itself, because it wasn't quite as thick colour wise as we wanted. So to play safe, I just give it the old piece, just that little all over staining. So should the resin not be as thick regarding to colour, it's not going to look so obvious underneath that we've got a stain on. So I'm going to just spray it. Doesn't matter what we find today. 151, one of my favourites. It could be a yacht varnish. Indoor pieces, remember, so we're not going to be too overly concerned about the amount of varnish, but just enough to say we put some on, and it also just darkens it down nicely. I'll go outside. It's a nice sunny day today, so we'll go outside. It's not as dusty. Not forget to do the side bits, and we can literally just spray over the full piece like so. Just be careful with your varnishes on white. They do say the white will yellow in time. Personally myself, I've never noticed. Okay, 2 or 3 more coats of this, and then we'll be ready to go and find some resin and basically just fill this one in. Right, that's our little varnish on, and I hope that's just enough. You can see there, hopefully. Just give a little bit of a shine to the project. Don't have it that way or that way. We'll keep it that way for now. Right, the next stage is basically we're just going to fill this in with resin. We've sealed it all with a varnish. We've done our paint. We've done all our stain work. So basically 2 colours on this one. There'll be black to go inside all these routed out areas, and a red for the background, and that's it. It's for the friend of mine, as this one, a gift for a friend, and he specified he wants a red background, so he will get a red background. Now the resin today, my favourite at the moment in time is Vista One. Like all your resins, it comes in 2 parts. You'll have A, your resin, and B, your hardener. Just check your resins. Some are deep pours, some are shallow pours. This is what they call a 1-to-1 mix, so whatever amount of A, we just mix with exactly the same amount of B. into one container, and that's it. We're good to go. Some resins are 2 to 1, some are 3 to 1, and so on and so on. What I like to use are these little plastic beakers here. They're ideal, and I would simply mark one with A. They've got little grooves on the side, so you just count up 4. I'll never do half of this, because when you got half, a full container of that is just too much to play with, and it will just go off on you too quickly, so just go steady. So I'd rather mix small amounts of A and B, and I'll just transfer one B into A. They do say put both into a separate container. It's not something I've ever done, and I've never had any issues. So we will mix that in there eventually. And for colour wise, just standard acrylic paints, nice cheap acrylic paints. We'll pop a bit of that into one of the mixers, give them a mix around, and basically just start filling this one in. And for mixing purposes, good cheap old plastic knife and forks. These are ideal because they do have a nice lip on the end. And for me personally, we'll mix that in, and we can just gently fill it in like so. Those other options, some people have used syringes before and filled that in like so. All these plastic pipettes, I tried those. You can cut the end off, give yourself a wider berth, fill it with resin, and you can squeeze that in the same. I've tried both of those, just didn't quite work for me. So I'm happy with a little spoon, knife or fork, and just feed it in. Get yourself a cocktail stick just to help it along its way like so. With resin, please put your proper gloves on. You want good gloves, a proper mask, and plenty of ventilation in the room. Some people can have quite a reaction to resin, so it's a chemical at the end of the day, so it can be a little bit dangerous, so just be aware of that and follow your instructions. Right, we'll mix A and B together, and then we'll pop in a bit of black and basically start filling this one in. Right, there's all our resin nicely mixed up. Remember, I just prefer to mix smaller batches. Follow the instructions, good 2 or 3 minutes mixing. Remember those gloves you've got to put on, and then a nice mask. Now there is dyes out there, powders, inks, plenty of different things to give you a colour. I just prefer to use these acrylic paints. Give it a good mixing, and then basically we can just start filling this up. And you can let a bit out, and if it doesn't look dark enough, you can simply just add a little bit more. Like I just said, I personally don't work on a ratio. I'll just put it in so it looks right, and I've never had any issues. But what do I know? Okay. So we'll go around like this, basically start filling this one in. And then once it's filled in, we'll get a lighter and skim over the top just to help release any of those air bubbles. And that might just be a little bit darker this time. We get a bit in there like so. Yes, I think we'll go with that. So let's start filling this one in. We'll put a bit in there, it'll find its own way slowly. But remember, you need your little cocktail stick, like so, just to help it on its way. Okay, let's start filling this one in, and we'll speed things up again. Speed up things up a little bit, because it's a nice steady project. Right, there's the last of the resin gone in. That was a slow process, was that one, but we got there eventually in the end. And as I've been going along with the project, we literally get a lighter. I normally use a little small one like this, and we just skim over the top, and that will just help all those little air bubbles disappear and come to the top. And there's also bigger ones like that, but don't keep these on too long, keep it moving. And that's it, all them little bubbles just disappeared now. Right, we'll put this to one side for a good 24 hours. Put a nice cover on it. Any flies, any dust, they will certainly find it, that's for sure. So we'll put this to one side, and then when we come back, this little project should be finished. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now it's been roughly 12 hours later, 15 hours. Personally myself, I would leave this for another 2 or 3 days. On certain resin groups I'm in, they do say that manufacturers recommend 30 days to fully cure. Personally, it seems a little bit over the top for me. I'll be quite happy to hang this one up tomorrow, no problem whatsoever. And you can see from that, everything's nice and set. It's all nicely solid. Remember those covers, the odd little speck, I've just seen one just there, if you get the light. The little speckle there, and I believe there's one down here somewhere. So just careful, remember to cover your projects up, because you will find those little speckles there. So, but that doesn't affect the overall project itself. The hardest bit was filling in these little lines there with the resin. And like I said previously, in the end I had to get some wipes and try and wipe it off. And if you wanted to, you could go over that again maybe with the white. But for me personally, I'm quite happy just to leave it like that. It's a free gift for somebody, so they're not going to complain at that, are they, surely? So that's it. This little project is finished. Now we routed it out on 12mm plywood using our CNC bits for the lines, remember? And then we went in with these end mill bits. I will put links in the description, eBay or Amazon, for me to do all the clear out. And then we went in with some staining after we cleaned it out with the little Dremel there with the engraving bit. We had a light teak for the surrounding area, and we went in with a dark teak for the actual framework itself. And before we applied the resin, just some nice spray. That's literally just to give it a shine finish, plus hopefully it seals all the wood itself a little bit, and it just helps with your little bubbles. And then obviously we mixed acrylic paint, not forgetting the white first, should I say, white for their painter's touch. Then we mix the acrylic paint into the Vista 1 resin. I use Crawford and Black, fantastic little paints, and they come at a good price as well. So that's it. This little project is finished, and it's 15 inches by 13 inches across. And for hanging purposes, we have a nice little simple hook on the back, like so, and that's plenty to hang it with. And I've had it on the wall, and it's nice and central. And that's it. This little project is finished. I don't know what it looks like through the camera. This is a nice darker red. This might give an orange look. But we'll go outside and do one in daylight. Remember these resin projects? They were for indoor only for me. UV light and stuff eventually could fade your colours. And obviously with it being plywood, I'm not too sure how long that would last outside with the rain. So that's it. Mods, sky people there dancing away, just enjoying themselves like I've enjoyed making this project. Thank you very much for watching.